is having difficulties living together, and particularly over things like food sacrificed to idols. If you're going to eat meat in the city of Rome, in any ancient city, all of the meat is sacrificed to idols. That's what happens in a butcher shop. It's just common practice. If you were to go to Fred Meyer in Rome, all your meat there, your hamburger, it just would have all been sacrificed in the presence of an idol at some point. Now, some of the community, is saying, "Oh no, we have to abstain from this. That it might look like we're partaking in bad religion." And then another group is saying, "That's just stupid. We don't believe in that. We can eat the meat without, ascribing to that." And we'll see how Paul tries to reconcile this. Again, you can see how our own issues, where some people say like differences of sexual identity, or music that's not, Christian, like we talked about.
Well, I even like movies a
Right.
lot of times. Like,
can you watch that?
As a youth pastor, a lot of times people are like, "Oh my gosh, Nicole, you watched that movie?" And I was like, "What's wrong?" Like it was a rated R movie. I'm like, I'm over 17.
Yeah.
It's fine. But that was a huge issue for me during doing ministry. Yeah.
And then I'd say the other theme is what's not there. And Romans is probably Paul's last letter. It's this mature, great theological work. One of the things you do not hear at all is talk of what's called the eschaton, or the end. Eschatology is the conversation about when Christ comes back. What does that mean? In the beginning of Paul's ministry, it's like Jesus is coming back Tuesday. He's coming back tomorrow. So
1st, 2nd Thessalonians.
Yeah, we got to be ready. No marriage, no nothing like this, because it's coming soon. By the end of Paul's ministry, he himself, his own attitudes, his own beliefs have changed because Christ didn't come back.
Yeah.
It's kind of, what do we do with that?
It's the same thing that the community in the Gospel of John is wrestling
Yes.
with. We talked about that last time.
Yeah, and we'll see this kind of grow and change throughout Paul's ministry. But here in Romans, you'll just notice an absolute absence of discussion. And so it appears by the end of Paul's lifetime, it just wasn't a topic that the community was really concerned about much anymore. So when we get to 1 Thessalonians, we talk about the rapture and putting like all this energy, into one really early text. We'll talk about how we might want to read that. So that's kind of thematically what I'd give you. I want to start out with the righteousness of God in 1:18. Paul is the famous writer of grace, that salvation comes through grace alone, not by following acts of law, or by the works of goodness that you can come up with, but God saves you by God's power, not yours. And Martin Luther is the big person who kind of understands this, and the story is he's probably on the can thinking about
Luther talks in the sermons all the time. Starts off with, "I was on the toilet the other day."
It's true.
That's like in all of his sermons. It's about drinking beer and being on the can. I guess cans both ways.
Lutherans, please address angry letters to Nicole.
A Lutheran told me that.
Just kidding, I'm kidding. No, it's true. Luther is an embodied. He's a fun guy.
Oh yeah.
Well, Luther is contemplating Paul. Luther's a New Testament professor. He's a monk, and he's consumed with his own unrighteousness. He's like, if it's up to me to become saved, I do so many bad things. Well, then he's reading, and this is the only time I know where someone is saved by grammar. That's what I just love this. But he reads, "I'm not ashamed of the gospel." This is in 1:16. "It's the power of God for salvation to everyone who has faith, Jew first, also to the Greek." And this is the important part. "For in it, the righteousness of God is revealed through faith for faith, ... The righteousness of God." Now, everyone around Luther thought that what this meant is the gospel is out there, the righteousness of God is put clear in there, and then you get to imitate that. And by doing works of the righteousness of God, by being like God, by becoming kind of perfect, that's how you become saved. Well, Luther knew his Greek. Luther was a smart guy, and he knows that there's something called a subjective genitive or an objective genitive, meaning the righteousness of God. It can be an objective genitive, so the righteousness can be the righteousness that's like God, so that you are supposed to be the righteous one. Or it could be a subjective genitive, meaning no, it's God's own righteousness that saves us. So it's not our righteousness or goodness, but it's God's. And this you can understand if it's us basically that saves us, or it's God that saves us. Bit of a difference, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. It's a bit.
And this is Luther's gospel moment, where he reads Paul and he realizes, oh my gosh, we are so obsessed with ourselves that we have forgotten it's actually God's goodness. It's God that's able to save, not us.
Yeah.
And the Protestant Reformation, you could say, comes down to this one grammatical, different way of reading the righteousness of God. It could be both. It's ambiguous. But Luther just reads it in a different way. And so that I want you to kind of hear that great historical moment there with Luther. Isn't it exciting? I know! Grammar's exciting.
We're both kind of language
We're
dorks.
a little nerdy.
Or just dorks.
Yeah.
And so grammar really gets us going.
Push up my glasses.
I don't wear my glasses for this, but they're in my car.
So what's next? You got, Chapter 8.
Chapter 8.
Oh.
I could spend my life just writing on Chapter 8. It's insane. Like, every 3 words is like a new, big, theological, just hammer thrown down.
What's with you? The hammer's thrown down today. Paul was like a hammer. Now Chapter 8's like a hammer.
Well, Chapter 8 is Paul.
That's true.
Here's him.
All right, fair enough.
Hammering.
Yeah, you're consistent then.
I am.
It's all hammers with you.
Give me the Bible.
I'm not the nail, am I? You're about to be the nail.
Sorry.
Get to Paul.
I'm trying to. Okay, so in Paul, Chapter 8, it's pretty much grace abounding. And there's so many famous pieces in here that you're just going to be like, wow, he fed that all in one chapter? He was really on a hot streak writing. That there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Grace. Jesus has set you free from the law of sin and death. It's the next line. Great. And this whole dialogue between flesh and spirit, and people who live for the flesh die by the flesh, people who live in the spirit are redeemed in the spirit. If God is for us, who can be against us? That's in this. So many. And then the end, which